Let's kick off with Nabila Ramdani, a journalist and specialist on Middle East affairs. Good morning, Nabila.
Good morning, Vanessa.
Can you tell me what they're doing there? The Prime Minister says it's important work, it's a mission. What is the mission?
Well, effectively, there will be all kinds of reasons put forward for staying in Afghanistan. But have you noticed how they always seem to come from dutiful soldiers and despairing politicians? The argument always seemed to be that we started something, so let's finish it. And it all started with George W. Bush's war on terror.
Well, let me stop you one moment, because I've really asked an extremely concrete question. It's not a complex or in any way mystifying question. The question is, do you know what they're doing? What do? They wake up in the morning and then presumably they have breakfast, they clean their teeth, and then what do they do? What are they doing all day? What are they engaged in doing? I ask not from any sort of, faux ignorance or innocence. I ask because I really don't know. What are they doing there? Can you answer that question?
Well, I do not know specifically what they're doing, but the idea behind intervention in Afghanistan is to stamp out terrorism in the wake of the 9/11 attacks on American soil. And that it all started in the wake of 9/11. Concretely, how do you stamp out terrorism in a uniquely volatile country like Afghanistan? It's very hard to tell. Mm-hmm. But what is noticeable is that war in Afghanistan had the opposite effect. It actually bred extremism and radicalization even more. And that's what wars do. It's a truism, but that's exactly what it did in Afghanistan.
Well, what do you understand to be the current state of affairs in Afghanistan? One newspaper today describes it as a chaotic shambles run by a corrupt regime. Is that biased, or does that strike you as an accurate description of Afghanistan this morning, today?
Well, let me tell you what my view is of the intervention and what it is, how it is perceived. We are effectively using a conventional war to fight a terrorist war, and history has shown us how difficult, if not impossible, this is. Mm-hmm. And the idea that you can end terrorist atrocities around the globe by having a permanent state of war in a country like Afghanistan is just ridiculous. How on earth anybody thought that Afghanistan can be pacified by a foreign military force is absolutely beyond me. And let's also not forget that many Afghans view the Western powers as a colonizing force, and this is, I'm afraid, it's inevitable. Let's not be under any illusions about the length of time we're dealing with as well. If you compare it to the First World War, which lasted 4 years, and the Second World War, the most destructive in human history, it lasted 6 years. And yet the West has been prosecuting George W. Bush's war on terror in Afghanistan for almost 11 years now. Bush himself has long retired, and yet, mainly young men are being slaughtered day in, day out. And incidents like the loss of 6 British soldiers are absolutely horrendous.
So when our Prime Minister, David Cameron, makes the speech that he made yesterday and says it's absolutely imperative that our troops remain as they are, committed to the work, the important work and the mission in hand, why is he saying that if what you're saying is true? It's impossible. We're using conventional warfare to fight a terrorist war. We're deplored and abhorred as a colonialist occupying force, and it's never going to work. Why does he think it is? What does he think is going to be achieved between now in 2012 and 2014 when they have promised to bring our men and women home? What does he think that they're achieving? He's not doing it for some kind of caper, is he? Obviously believes that there's something important going on. What is it?
Well, this idea that, we started something, so we have to finish something, is a noble logic in itself. But I'm afraid it's the wrong one. And we've also seen the former Chief of Defence Staff, Lord Stirrup, say this morning that Britain should hold its nerve.
Yes.
And that's the level of the argument we've reached. It's like a poker game. It doesn't, translate into any reality. What is it exactly? Can politicians tell us what is it exactly that they are trying to achieve in Afghanistan? Afghanistan has been a graveyard for invading soldiers for centuries. Kipling was already writing about it in Victorian times, and it's about time we acknowledge that. And might I say, we can also get into huge economic arguments. We talk about austerity Britain, and now we have to make savings in the health budget, in education, and yet we think nothing of using, multi-million pounds missiles to prosecute a war.
Final question, Nabila, because we're running out of time. Final question. The implication by military personnel, by the government, by other experts is that if we were to pull out, as I said this morning, this afternoon, tomorrow, next week, we would leave devastation, anarchy and worse in our wake, that we would be doing the Afghan people a terrible disservice were we to leave now. Is that true, do you think?
No, I think it's the complete opposite, and it's a truism to say, but Afghanistan would be a much safer place without a war, and that's exactly what's happening there at the moment. A war is taking place.
Thank you for joining us on the programme. That's Nabila Ramdani, journalist and specialist on Middle East affairs.